everybody, welcome to the Mom Series, The Misunderstanding of Multiplicity. My name is Maria, and I wanted to say I've changed the channel name, if you've noticed, those of you that have been subscribed to me for a long time. Some of you will remember the name used to be Sensory Overload, because that's how I experienced my life with what I was talking about out here, which was a mental health label that I was diagnosed with, called MPD, Multiple Personality Disorder. And I was diagnosed with that in 1986 when it was called that. 1993 it was changed to DID, Dissociative Identity Disorder. I was in my late 20s when I was diagnosed. I'm going to be 63 next week. And I can tell you that that is not the problem anymore. And it it wasn't a problem for a long time until it became a problem. And then it was, with therapy, manageable and treatable. And there are a lot of people that don't consider their life experience, as plural, to need a therapist. And there are a lot of people that feel very disordered with knowing and acknowledging different aspects, parts, pieces, alter egos, identities that they developed with. They find it very, very disordered. And I think it's really going to depend on how it's explained to you from your doctor, how you experience it, and how your family and friends react to it. That's going to matter the most in a person's life. But I usually look at the depictions in movies and what's in the media that adds to the stigma and really puts people into cookie cutter boxes. Like, if you're diagnosed with DID, you are like Sybil, like, Shirley Ardell Mason, or Three Faces of Eve, or United States of Terra, or you're like all these depictions we see, which is just really not the way it is. So it's really just, it's just not that exciting, okay? So not that sexy, you guys. So I've been out here for 13 years now talking about it, and I've kind of gotten away from the topic because the YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Tumblr, Reddit, whatever DID community is just, the internet community has gone wild with it. So today what I want to talk about is depression. And I want to talk about suicide. And the reason I want to talk about depression and suicide is because we've lost another beautiful person, another beautiful one, Naomi Judd. And Naomi Judd is the mother of Wynonna Judd and Ashely Judd, and part of the duo, the Judds. And I really enjoyed coming up in the 80s. I took a little spin into country music a little bit. I was a little bit country, a little bit rock and roll, a little bit Motown. And I really enjoyed them. I went so far as to I would watch TV shows when Naomi was sharing cooking recipes. I read all of the Judd women's books. I read Ashely's book. I read Wynonna's book. I read Naomi's books. And my heart is really with the Judd family and with Larry Strickland and everyone that worked with them and knew them, the Gaither family, just everyone that knew them so well. And my prayers. And I was on a thread the other day, and just on a post, and I saw somebody wrote, well, why did they leave her alone knowing that she was so depressed? And that made me really start thinking about the way we deal with depression. Nobody could have stopped Naomi. So let's talk about depression, and then let's talk about suicide. And I want to say right here, it is normal for people to have suicidal feelings, and we don't have to be afraid of talking about it. And talking about suicide does not mean you're going to go kill yourself. And talking about suicide does not talk another person into killing themselves. And this is one of the biggest stigmas the biggest taboo weirdo thoughts out there is that if you're writing poetry and it's dark and it's depressive, that you're going to be like Sylvia Plath and Virginia Woolf. And I am drawn to the uh, poets that, unfortunately, Emily Dickinson, the poets that um, died and were depressed. And there's so much stigma around depression. There's so many misconceptions around depression. A lot of people think depressed people are just worry warts because anxiety is with depression often. A lot of people think they're just joy kills. They just have bad energy, bad juju, bad, just they're an energy drain. Or, geez, they just see the cup half empty all the time, or just nothing. They're never happy, or you can't make them happy. They're difficult people. They're dramatic. Oh my God, drama llama. Here we go again. Okay, so first things first, depressed people know that people think this way about them. And there are 7 kinds of depression, 7 kinds. I have had 2 kinds of them, 2.5 kinds in my life that I've struggled with. There is clinical depression, which is a major mood disorder, and there's treatment for it. And it can, on a spectrum, it can wax and wane, and it can become situational in times that situations are harder, loss, death, grief. There's all kinds of situational depressions that any one of these major mood disorders can get worse with. And so that's important to note. So if you have major mood depression, clinical depression, what some doctors call systemic depression because your body is depressed, it can get worse during loss and grief and abandonment and rejection and just big blowups in life that happen, just the unexpected. You might not recover as quick because you already have clinical depression, right? Then there's persistent depressive disorder, which is probably one of the ones that get misunderstood a lot. I just posted on Facebook about it because I know a person in my family that has this, and I think I functioned this way for a long time before I was diagnosed. And some doctors call it high functioning depression, and all that means is you don't look depressed. You you don't look like somebody, and you're not acting like somebody that's depressed. You are still showing up for work every day. You are still showing up for school. You are still completing all your assignments. You are still rolling out of bed, making your bed, washing your face, brushing your teeth, doing your hair, cooking, cleaning, being everywhere you're supposed to be. But you are really in the battle of your life inside to push yourself. You are really agonizing and anxious over everything, and you are struggling. And that is persistent depressive disorder. And it's really not that high functioning. I mean, eventually something has to slow down. So it's treatable also. All of these are treatable, all of them. And then there is a little known weirdo one that I had. I'm not dismissing it. I'm saying mine. I think a lot of people do dismiss it because it's hormonal related. And I had a gynecologist obstetrician that used to write down on my invoice all the time, premenstrual dysphoric. Premenstrual dysphoric. And what that means is during your leading up to the days, 7 to 10 days before your cycle, not only did I gain 10 pounds of bloat and water, but my head felt like a bubble and I couldn't make any sense of anything. Couldn't focus, couldn't finish one thing. I was always on the edge, irate, wanting to just blow up, like tomato red hot rage. And then once I got my period, I was okay. and also fatigue, cranky, food cravings, overeating, eating too much, salt, 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 sugar, 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 and then falling asleep, and then being more bloated. So there is, and then feeling like I don't want to be here. And my one and only suicide attempt was 5 minutes before I started bleeding. And so I was diagnosed with premenstrual dysphoria, which is a very hormonal pattern. I'd like to tell you it goes away, but it doesn't. It really kind of stays with you and follows your hormones. So it can revisit you postpartum. Women that have severe PMS with dysphoric, premenstrual dysphoric disorder will also have a time perimenopause and postmenopause where you can almost look back at your calendar and see the days that you used to have your cycle. Those are the days you're bloating, gaining 10 pounds, feeling depressed, not wanting to get out of bed, or maybe linger a little longer, or not wanting to go anywhere, not wanting to do the things you're interested in, and really short-tempered, and just spending more money, or not making good decisions, or not able to make any decision. If you look at your calendar, you'll see, oh wow, that's when I used to get my period every month, and I'm postmenopause, and I'm doing that now. I'm getting those food cravings now. I'm still getting the breast tenderness. I'm still bloating. I'm still getting the waterhead feeling. What the? Our body has a memory. So that's important to know. Also, even though my doctor had for years, my therapist had written down major depressive disorder and MPD, the the disabling or the main condition was always the clinical depression. And when we ended therapy, he said, you know, the MPD, the DID, that's not really the issue right now. It's getting you back to your life. So it's the depression with the anxiety. Anxiety kind of just follows as a best friend to depression. So there's clinical depression, there's persistent depressive disorder, and then there's premenstrual syndrome, dysphoric depression, and there's perimenopause and postpartum. So those are all very hormonal. The kind of depression I have is a seasonal affective depression that is opposite. So I want to talk about that one. I don't get depressed in the winter. I get depressed. I mean, even when the clinical depression is gone, I'm doing great. Everything's wonderful. Come summertime, intense sunshine. I think the way my doctor explained it to me is that my therapist probably misdiagnosed me as reacting to a trauma event that happened in the summer, or relating it to fear and anxiety because I was allergic to bees and wasps. And those things were very real, but it wouldn't stop me from going outside. It wouldn't make me feel so intensely emotional. So there were two things going on that I remember the psychiatrist kept looking at. Was one, my thyroid. She kept going back to, what's going on with your thyroid? Every time I got tested, they would say it's normal. It wasn't normal. I was hyperthyroid. I was always hyperthyroid. So, but they just called it like subclinical, like not treatable. Keep an eye on it kind of thing until you were frankly hyperthyroid. And now I've been frankly hyperthyroid for a while, and I'm on medication for it. I would say if you're feeling depressed or super irritable, anxious, and irate, get your thyroid checked, please. If your heart's pounding out of your chest, if you're sweating, if you feel like you're having a panic attack every minute. Many of my panic attacks were really just the thyroid overworking. Once I got on medication for the thyroid, I didn't have panic attacks anymore. I didn't a lot of that feeling like something is going to blow up in your chest or you're going to throw up or whatever, and you're sweating and you're talking too fast and you can't sleep, can't sleep, you're sweating. All that is not panic attack. It is your thyroid. Get it checked. All right. It can even make your hands shake. You can look nervous. You can have a tremor. So get your thyroid checked. The opposite side of your thyroid being hyper can be hypo, meaning you're cold. You don't handle the cold well. You're tired. You're depressed. You have no energy, low energy. Your thyroid keeps everything going, your metabolism. You're not digesting food. You're hungry all the time. You're not hungry. You're all of these things. All of it is just regulate your thyroid. Get that done. So I have seasonal affective sad summer. So 4 to 6% of the population has seasonal affective disorder in the winter time when the days are shorter and there isn't enough sunlight and it's cold. I actually thrive in cold weather. I thrive. I am full of energy. I'm happy. I'm joyful. I can do anything in the wintertime, but maybe get over that pile of snow out there. But I can do it in the winter. I I got everything to live for in the winter. The minute the sun starts hitting the windows and the heat, humidity, when everybody else is like running outside, be outside, they're like, oh, I want to go have an ice cream. I want to go on the beach. I want to go on the boat. I'm like, I just want to stay in. Leave me alone. I can't. So, I think I said this in another video. My therapist, I had a therapist and a psychiatrist. So the therapist and I did talk therapy, and the psychiatrist and I would check in, and then my primary doctor. And that's really how it should be. If you're seeing a therapist or counselor to talk, there should be a psychiatrist following them and then a primary doctor. You should have the ability to prescribe. And it really shouldn't fall on a primary care doctor because psychiatrists just know better what's going on. I'm serious about that. And they know what blood test to test for. Okay? So make sure you get fully evaluated with not just and I'm not putting down social workers because I'm a social worker. Don't just get assessed by a social, like an LCSW or a FMT or like a family and marriage counselor or a licensed certified social worker. Oh, It's I'm not going to say they can't diagnose, but they can't prescribe. And and there might be some treatment, especially if you're dealing with depression. There might be something you need, and usually primary care doctors do know what is what, but it's good to check in with the psychiatrist. Okay, that's all I'm saying. So there's clinical depression, there's persistent depressive disorder, which some people call high functioning, and some people call clinical systemic or, um, major mood disorder. And then there is all of the hormonal flux depressions, which I'm just going to say perimenopause, postpartum after a baby, and um, uh, premenstrual. Okay. And then there is bipolar, which goes up and down and up and down. And it's really important. And I tell all my bipolar friends this because I have a lot of friends that are bipolar in the artisan community, a lot of musicians, I don't know why this is, but a lot of artists. I don't mean that all artists are bipolar, but I mean I know a whole bunch of them that struggle with energy changes. Let's just say artisans, writers, um, people that create a lot, musicians, they'll have these large amounts of energy where they're prolific. It's amazing what the work they produce, but they're also not sleeping. They're also not eating. They're also not tending to their own personal hygiene. They're going at a rate where they're starting to elevate up, and that's called hypomania. And a lot of people enjoy this because the flip side of that is they're down. So it's very secular where and some people, there's bipolar 1, 2, mixed. So within that depressive disorder, and the reason it's under depressive disorders, bipolar, is because what goes up must come down. And so eventually, no matter how you go up and down, you're going to hit that low. And there's always a chance for suicide when you hit that low. So, bipolar. So let's see, how many did I name so far? So clinical, which is also systemic, persistent, which some people call pervasive or high functioning, perimenopause, postpartum, and premenstrual. And then there's seasonal affective disorder. And there is an opposite. So 10% of people out of the 4 to 6%, and you can go to Very Well Mind to find this. Very Well Mind, I'll list my source. 4 to 6% have seasonal affective disorder, and they experience it in the winter. 10% actually experience it in the summertime, but we just don't hear about it. I'm one of the 10%. It's more common. So summertime. What else? And then there is treatment resistant, and situational depression. And then there's age-related depression as we get older, or situational again, as illnesses affect our body. We always want to look at medications we're on because they can cause depression and suicidal thoughts. What else? And then there's what Naomi Judd called treatment resistant depression. Some people don't call it that. They just call it a major mood disorder, or they call it bipolar. There's an arsenal of medications that can be used for treatment resistant. And I like to think of it like insulin resistant. There's things you can do to manage it. But the underlying feeling always is anxiety and depression. And there's some medications that do work, but they only work for a little while, or the side effects of them are so difficult that many people have to get off of them or add another to the mix. So it's important to keep mixing up those medications and be in touch with your doctor, talk therapy, journaling, expression. I find that at the crux of every depression is anxiety about expressing what you're really feeling. It's anger. It's a loss of control. It's a feeling of, I don't have control of this situation. I don't have control of my life, or that's not how I wanted that to happen, or now what do I do, right? There's a feeling of I can't fix that, and I can't make it better. And I think it's really important to have a really strong support group and not just depend on 1 or 2 people because they can get worn out. And if you're in a suicidal, depressive state and depending on just 1 or 2 people and they show any sign of frustration with you, you can interpret it, exaggerate it. You can interpret it like, oh, they don't want me around either. Never mind. I can't talk to you either. Never mind. I'm just too much for the world. And that is really at the crux of it is I am too much for the world. Too much everything. Too much. I am abandoned. I am rejected. I am alone. I am a burden. I just do everything wrong. I just do everything wrong. I just can't please anyone. So you'll see people constantly trying to please and do right, but they're not really doing what they want to do. So you really do need to stay with a therapist through this. And I'd like to say self-help books are great, and they are. They're part of your homework. They're part of our daily getting what, I mean, it just is. But it is normal in all of these depressions to have suicidal, fleeting thoughts. What is not normal is to have a plan, is to start to go in the direction of the world would be better off without me. The afterlife looks better. I'm just too much. I have no purpose. When you get to that point, please get help. Please, please, please. And I know this is going to sound really trite to say, just stay one more day, because that is how a lot of people are functioning when they get to this point. They're just convincing themselves. See, this is what we need to realize. When a person is really struggling in a depression, it's not their fault. It's not because they're negative Nelly. It's not because they're worrywart. It's not because they're pessimistic. It's not because they're melodramatic. It's not because, always something. No, it's, and they know you're thinking that, which makes them just react more. So it is a pervasive fatigue, energy drain, quicksand. It's like quicksand. And you can maybe get above it up to your waist. Maybe you're here and you can still breathe. But it's a sinkhole. And people are just navigating around that sinkhole and not trying to go under every day. Even high functioning, even I would say situational depressions, you're in a season of sadness, like grief. There's just that sadness there, that loss. And elderly people really go through this, and people alone, and people that are disabled. And during the plague, we really went through this, the pandemic. Loss of job, loss of school, loss of structure, loss of everything. So there are a lot of depressed people out there, and it can present as angry, irritable, agitated, jumping to defensive. It can present as a person with an anger management problem or an impulse problem, or somebody just walking away, saying, with me, I know the signs for me. It's important to know your signs. I know that when I get severely depressed, I just won't. Personal hygiene goes out the window. I literally, I had to actually call my therapist and ask him, what the fuck's was wrong with you that you never mentioned this to me? And a good friend that I was always around, I was like, didn't you notice this about me then? I was like close to 200 pounds. I was just eating myself to death. And I was only taking a bath once a week. And I was just coming to therapy and going back home and going to bed because I had nothing to live for. How did you not notice this? How did you not say, okay, talk therapy isn't working now. Maybe we ought to get you some antidepressant or something? Just, you need to know when you're going down that path of, nobody's coming over. I don't have to get dressed. Nobody's coming over. I don't have to wash. Nobody's coming over. I don't have to brush my teeth. I'm just going to sit here in front of the TV and eat. I'm not really watching a show. I don't even know what's going on, but it's passing time. No, no, you're going down the drain. So, yeah, that is really what Naomi Judd was dealing with, not being able to get off the couch. And we're talking about the kind of, and I've done this, I've been there. where in the summertime, so I try very hard not to get to that point again. I work very hard in the summertime to not be there, where I just shut away and lay still. And for me, I go in two directions. I either overeat or I don't eat at all. Start canceling all appointments. Just don't go anywhere I'm supposed to be. I'm surprised my therapist didn't see a pattern of, oh, it's summertime, you're canceling appointments again, you're staying home, you're avoiding, oh, let's do a phone session. I'm really surprised looking back in hindsight that he didn't really like confront me on that and be like, hey, you're going into your seasonal thing again. But he worked with me. And I think more than anything, he knew that I needed to stay in touch with someone. And so he reached out in what capacity he could. But now I know all of those signs. So it's important for you to be your own advocate and encourage yourself and know this is what I do. Oh, yeah, I'm laying here. I should get up. I'm laying here. If I don't, my circulation, oh, yeah, my toes are turning blue. I think I should move. I should move a toe. I should move my feet. I should get up and exercise. I just can't lay here and go into complete catatonia because that is how bad it can get. And what Naomi Judd was saying in many of her interviews is that her husband Larry had to literally pick her up off the couch because she was in such a deep sleep that she almost looked comatose many times. So with people with treatment-resistant severe depression like Naomi Judd, there's only so many medications you can be on for so long before they start wearing on your organs. And I know that people have looked into ketamine, electroconvulsive therapy, different like cocktails of medicine for a time. But the most important thing is structure, regular schedules, routine, friends, support system, journaling, a way to express yourself, a way to safely emote anger, to safely say no, to be able to be still, grounded, mindful, some form of a higher power to look to. Whether you call that higher power God, I call that I have an eternal parent. And it's mommy and daddy to me. It's my mommy and daddy who are in heaven. And I jumped off their lap and was told, okay, go down to earth now and do your thing. And am I doing my thing? I don't know. And that's what we're supposed to find out on earth is, am I doing my thing? Or should I go back and sit on my mommy and daddy lap, on God's lap? So I think what I always remind myself, and it just depends on what you believe in God, I guess, and higher supreme being and faith. What I always think is if my heart's still beating, there's a reason for me to be here. And even if I haven't found it yet, even if I'm not living in that complete God-given purpose, if I end it early, then I will have never achieved that purpose. Okay, so I'm going to end here. Everybody stay safe. Don't be afraid to talk about suicide. Don't be afraid to talk about trauma. Don't be afraid to talk about depression. It is a stigmatizing disorder, but it is a common human experience that so many people have in so many different ways. I've just named like 7 or 8 different ways that you can experience it, and there's so much that goes with it. Study it, learn about it, and please don't ever, if God forbid somebody, chooses to leave this planet in the throes of their depression, please don't blame their family. There are some people that that is their final say. There are some people that it's their final fuck you to the world. Pardon my language, but that's what it is. My God, it's their final. It's an anger at other people and situations that you turn inward. And that's a whole nother video, but when it comes to suicide, it really is anger at something you can't control out there, anger at a person, anger at people that you would like to get back at and hurt, but instead you hurt yourself. People that have hurt you, that you have had enough of them because you love them so much, but you have had enough of their crazy. And you have stayed for them, you have rearranged your life for them, you have done all this mental and physical gymnastics. And I really feel like Naomi Judd did not want to get back up on the road, get back up on stage. She had anxiety about it. She wanted to do her own life. And she wanted to end her life on her terms. And that is what sometimes happens. So I'd say just everybody, try to be respectful of people's timeline on this earth and their chosen plan and all the resources they have and what they don't have. Maybe you can remind people, like maybe instead of saying, hey, where were you? Maybe you can remind somebody that they did all they could do. And that would be better than, oh, wow, your mom died because where were you? I was just blown away at so many people that were quick to write, how could anybody leave Naomi Judd alone? They knew she was in that situation. No, 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 no. You could take every sharp object away from a suicidal person. No sharps. You could check on them every 50 minutes. Checks. You could drug them into zombie land where they can't do much. You could do all that. And they still could get the energy and kill themselves. So I'd say we're just all here on borrowed time. Recognize that people around us are gifts every minute. Their smile, their phone call, their voice, their presence is a gift. And let's just have some more grace for one another. And if you're struggling with depression or suicidal thoughts in any stage of your life, in anything that I've mentioned, please pick up the phone and get some help. And even during pandemic, there's online support. There's people you can talk to, telemedicine, and it really is secure. So don't be afraid to reach out. People don't just come and run and lock you up. It's not like that anymore. People work with you. There are peer people that come out and can support you and help you unravel it. And there's art and there's poetry and there's writing and there's music and there's exercise and there's good food to eat. There's so many things you can do to combat this. Okay. And don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call your elderly loved one or a home person that's in the home, or maybe a person that is just heavy on your mind, heavy on your heart, that things didn't end well with them, but you have no closure and everything's just up in the air and you just feel like you need to call them and say, I love you. I love you. I want you to know you matter to me, or thank you. I'm grateful for you. Or I know we're not in the place we were before, but you matter to me. So I'm going to do that with family members. That I'm going to reach out to family members, even if they needed their space to go away. I'm still going to let them know, hey, and I still love you. And that's important. Try not to be walking around with everything kind of like up in the air, hanging. Like try to find those neat niceties that you need to do in your life to feel better for you and hopefully make them feel better too. All right. Have a nice day, everybody, and stay another day. Bye.